Whenever a large group of people are asked, "What are you most afraid of?" invariably somebody somewhere says, "circus clowns." And sometimes that person is me. Most people's coulrophobia, that's fear of clowns to the uninitiated, is down to those Stephen King's It adaptations. Shout out to Tim Curry's miniseries. You see those spiky yellow teeth when you're a kid, all like, "Hiya, Georgie," and forget about it. Traumatized for life. I didn't see the miniseries until just before the movies came out a few years back, so I can't blame my fear. Some people just find them creepy in general, which, again, I understand. But I'm pretty sure I was chill with clowns until my cousin's 7th birthday party, when something happened that gave me a legit phobia that's lasted into my 30s. So, I'm like 5 years old, it's my cousin's 7th birthday party, and for some reason, he's obsessed with old-fashioned big-top circuses. I think it was maybe from watching Dumbo so much, but the point is, he's all about clowns, training lions, elephants, all that stuff. This gives his mom an idea to throw a circus-themed birthday party, which would include a visit from an actual real-life circus clown. From what I can remember, that party was awesome until the clown showed up. There was a bouncy house, snacks, party games, all that good stuff. Then after a while, the clown shows up. My cousin Jay is ecstatic because his mom managed to keep the whole thing a complete surprise, so he's about foaming at the mouth with how happy he is. Clown guy does balloon animals, all the clown cliches, and then for whatever reason, he starts looking for 2 volunteers. He obviously picks the birthday boy on the guidance of his mom, so he just happens to pick me too. And that's when he starts tickling me. I hate being tickled. Always have, probably always will. Not like most people who find it slightly unpleasant or, God forbid, those weird tickle fetishists who actually enjoy it. Nah, I legit hate being tickled, even back when I was 5. So the fact this clown dude is tickling me is already putting me on edge, and I don't want to ruin the fun, so I remember just kind of playfully pushing him away. But he wouldn't take the hint. He keeps tickling me and singing this dumb song like tickle, 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 tickle. And then right as I lose my temper, I turn to be like, "Get off me, clown dude." I just see blood pouring down his face from under his round red nose. His laughing in that super creepy high-pitched way, actually tickling me, and there's blood running down his face. I scream like a little girl. I bolted towards the house, screaming and crying, running full pelt at the glass patio doors, which just so happened to be shut. And boom, I'm out like a light. I woke up in the car on the way to the hospital. It felt like I was out for hours, but from what my dad told me it was more like a couple of minutes. Because I was 0 to 100 into those patio doors, I didn't remember getting knocked out, let alone how I'd been knocked out. All I knew was that it was the worst pain I'd ever been in, from a severely broken nose, and there was blood all over me, and my last clear memory of it being tickled by a bloody clown, or, as I remembered it, a monster trying to eat me. So as I woke up, I was inconsolable, and I don't think I calmed down until a nurse got some painkillers in me. Obviously, I didn't see the aftermath of getting knocked out, but apparently it was like a war zone. All the kids started screaming, some of them thinking the clown guy had somehow caused me to run into the glass doors. Spoilers, he had. Jay was angry that I'd ruined his birthday party, but that's just something we laugh about now. I guess I see the funny side myself these days, but that doesn't change what the event did to my psyche. It ingrained in me a deep-seated fear of clowns that caused some awkward moments in the years that followed. I'm not proud of it, but not 6 months after it happened, I actually peed my pants in a shopping mall when I saw a guy dressed up as Ronald McDonald. Like, I'm serious. It messed me up for a long time, and even today the image of a circus clown provokes a pretty visceral reaction in me, even if I have learned to suppress it. I'm proud to say I managed to sit through the It movie, the first one anyway, after working up to it with the old Tim Curry series, which I credit with actually helping me get on top of my phobia. But yeah, that's why I'm scared of clowns. This is something I didn't realize the severity of till I was older. My mom had left me and my brother home alone. It was midday. My brother was 12, maybe 13, so I was 9 years old. Watching him play Xbox in our living room, he had his headset on talking to his friends. There was a knock from the door on our carport. I run and answer the door without looking. It's a grown man I've never seen before. We are separated by the screen door, which at the time was unlocked. He asks, "Are your parents home?" Horror washes over me. First of all, he's knocking from the carport, which is strange in and of itself. A stranger would knock on our front door, right? And our carport is empty. We only had one car and my mother had taken it. This man knows that my parents aren't home. I'm afraid. I don't know why, but I am scared. Immediately, my brother in the other room comes to mind. I've never had a father figure. My brother has always been the one who has made me feel safe. The strongest person in the whole world. Someone who could protect me in any situation. How most people would regard their father, I think. I feel as though I can barely speak. Wide-eyed, I manage to stutter out, "No, but, big brother here." Without even a moment's pause, this man reaches for the screen door and starts to open it. Like an act of God, divine intervention, an arm reaches out from behind me over my shoulder and grabs the door. My brother pushes past me, holding the door, forcing the man back with his presence, out into the carport, and closes the door behind him. The man tells my brother he was looking to buy some old swing set that was in our front yard at the time. My brother comes back in without saying anything to me, puts on his headset and continues playing. I sit down as well and continue watching him. I don't believe we ever told our mom. Luckily, I never encountered this person again, and it pretty much fades from my memory. But as I got older, it became one of the scariest things that ever happened to me. My friends and I went on a camping trip for 3 days in the desert last fall, 2019. We went out to hike, explore, and go shooting where we could without posing danger to anyone else. There were about 7 of us in total, and of those 7, myself and 2 others are emergency medical professionals. We'll call my 2 EMS friends A and E. We set up camp near the road in an area that had an embankment that would make for a good and safe range. The first day and night went well. However, I remember as the sun was setting, a truck slowly drove by with a large trailer in tow. Normally this wouldn't catch my eye, but I noticed the cargo, though covered, didn't look like it could be any sort of camping gear, and the truck bed was empty. The 2 men in the cab of the vehicle and I locked eyes as they passed. I gave a friendly wave and a smile, but they just stared at me, emotionless. After a moment, they both turned away and floored it out of sight, trailer rumbling ensued. I didn't think much of it at the time, so just went about my business for the night until bedtime. My second day was full of more hiking and shooting. We stopped at around dusk as to not disturb other nearby campers with loud gunfire. As darkness fell, we made our bonfire and cracked open a beer and just talked for quite some time. Amid the conversation, I saw a slight reddish glow drop behind a nearby hill and vanish. I brought it up with the group and asked, "Did anyone else see that?" No one else had seen what I did, so I excused it as mistaking it as an ember from the fire. Around 10 minutes go by and I see it again, except it was high in the sky and deeper into the desert. "It's a flare," said one of the group. "An emergency flare, maybe," I added. We decided that if we see another one go off, some of us would go see if there was anyone in need of help, as we brought advanced medical supplies. A few minutes go by and sure enough, we spot another flare, a little bit west of where the last one was seen. We made a plan, A.E., myself, and another one of our friends who we'll call Jay, and we would venture out in A's truck to find whoever needed help. Now, certain areas of the desert we were in has been used by cartels as hidden transport routes before, so we also brought some of our firearms just in case we needed to protect ourselves from an attack. We loaded up our medical equipment, hopped into the truck, and began driving out, leaving the others to keep watch if whoever needed help came to the camp. We headed in the direction of the last flare seen, windows rolled down, listening for calls for help, as well as announcing that if someone was in distress, they should call out to us. Continuing on, another flare shot up further west than the last, illuminating the rocky hills in a dim red hue. I called out the direction, and we found a small dried ravine that we could use as passage. We turned down the dark ravine and drove for some time, the only light being that of the truck, which only seemed to make the overwhelming darkness that much more imposing. All while calling out but hearing nothing in return, another flare came up close by, but still too far to see anyone. We continued forward until we hit the end of the ravine, which led to somewhat of a natural cul-de-sac surrounded by rocky hills on three sides. We hopped out and searched the area for a bit with our flashlights. We yelled out again, but no one responded. It was empty, but we could have sworn this was where it came from. After searching a bit more to be thorough, we decided to check another area down the main road. The end of the ravine was tight for the truck, but there was just enough room to make a U-turn. Jay and I decided to hop in the truck bed for the search so we could see more than what the back seat would allow. As we turned out, a large cloud of dust and gravel hit me with a loud accompanying hiss. "What the F just happened?" yelled A. "Think you blew a tire there, buddy," I replied. We hopped out and inspected and found that his rear passenger side tire had blown, but I noticed something a bit off. The blow was on the wall of the tire and clean, not on the bottom and jagged as would be if it hit a sharp rock. I brought up how suspicious that was, but they reasoned that it must have just been a larger sharp stone. As they got to work replacing the tire with the spare, I stood watch. There was some difficulty with changing the wheel. The tire iron bent, and so did one of the lug nuts. As they worked, I heard something approach me quickly from the darkness. I immediately turned and drew my pistol, turning the light towards the sound. A large rock had rolled down one of the jagged hills to my right and stopped about 10 feet from me. I shone my light up to the top. I didn't see anything but some small rocks and gravel still tumbling down the slope. I almost laughed at how I reacted, but then another rock began tumbling down towards me, a few feet away from the same area. I shined my light again, but saw no one. I became a bit paranoid. Those rocks were too big to be moved by any animal, and they both came from the same direction. I relayed the information to my friends, but they blew it off, saying I was getting too paranoid. I agreed that was a possibility, but I never let my guard down. My gut feeling was telling me something was wrong. I was on edge the whole time, even thinking to myself that the flares might be some kind of trap or lure. In the meantime, we were cracking jokes about our luck. "Hey, this situation sucks, but I'm glad I'm in it with y'all," said A, and the feeling was mutual. My buddies had just finished up replacing the tire when yet another flare rocketed off in the sky near the ravine entrance we took and fell back down to earth nearby. We called out as we loaded back up into the truck, but once more, we were met with silence. We drove back down to the beginning of the trail and saw no one. We began to doubt if anyone was in trouble and if it was just some dumb kids playing around with a flare gun, which is illegal to misuse. With that said, we weren't going to give up that easily. We began driving deeper into the desert on the main road when another flare was spotted. This one was what puzzled us. Up until then, they were all in roughly the same area. This one was way further northwest of the last one. How are they all the way over there now? I wondered. If these are some idiot teens doing this, we needed to tell them that they can't just go off causing worry like that. It's really irresponsible, said E. We did agree that if that's the case, we should talk to them and their parents. We don't take emergencies lightly. We pushed on towards the last seen light, which led us to something that puzzled us even more. We arrived at a dark campsite surrounded by 2 hills. The headlights revealed 2 tents, scattered belongings, and an old fire pit. We exited the vehicle and began our approach on foot, but something was wrong. The tents were unoccupied but still had a load of gear inside and out, and the fire pit was clearly stomped out with coals just barely glowing. It looked like it was quickly abandoned. Even if they went hiking or out on a walk, they left their equipment, shoes, packs, everything. As I searched, I found an even more unsettling sight. Shotgun shells. 12 gauge, and they weren't old. They had to have been fired recently. There was no dust on them. Even after half a day in the desert, they'd be covered in dirt carried by the wind, and they still smelled of gunpowder. I showed my buddies and they agreed this was too odd. We later found deep tire marks like someone left in a hurry. And that's when I saw it. It was an ominous orange glow coming from over the north hill that overlooked the abandoned campsite. I asked E to accompany me to go check it out. As we ascended the hill, we heard a small noise grow louder and louder. Once we reached the top, we looked down into a barren valley to see what I couldn't make out at first. "What's that?" asked E. I didn't answer him at first as I was focused on what was before us. Roughly 50 yards away, there was a large circle of dark figures in hoods and robes, arms stretched to their sides, and all of them vocalizing in a low chant. In the center was a wide ring of fire, and in the center of the flames, revealed by the fire's light, was an immensely large black pyramid frame. I mean, this thing was giant. A bit off behind the group, the truck and trailer I saw earlier with some other vehicles. "I think it's a cult," I replied. As I spoke those words, the chanting stopped, and the group of what must have been 50 people all turned towards us in silence. At that moment, I realized I never turned off my flashlight. They all raised their arms once more and let out a horrifying and loud wail. First just one, and then they all began to join in until the sound was overtaking my own thoughts. "We gotta get the F out of here, now!" I told E in a hushed but anxious tone. We turned and booked it down the hill. "Start the truck!" E yelled. A and J looked at us confused and almost amused. "Why is that?" chuckled A. "It's a cult, and they know we're here," I explained out of breath. A and J could see that we weren't playing, and so he ushered us into the truck and we hauled it out and back to camp. As we got back onto the main road, something happened that made A and J fully believe us and confirmed my suspicions about the flares. From every hill along the main road, flares shot up into the sky from all sides, illuminating the desert around us, either a warning or a threat. As we would drive, more and more would fly above us, encompassing the sky above until we got far enough away and the flares fell and faded behind us. We got back and explained everything to the rest of camp, happy to be back with our lives. They looked as though they didn't fully believe it, but they also knew we wouldn't just make something up like this. We speculated that that was either some kind of lure or a warning system for the cult. We slept close that night and kept firearms nearby. When we awoke, we cleaned up and got ready to leave. I was clearing debris from the range when I stumbled onto something that wasn't there before. A small wooden pyramid frame, charred black and still smoldering. I called attention to it and we promptly left. We got back and went on with our lives. I think back to this event every now and then, and I'm thankful that my friends and I weren't harmed, and I hope the owners of that abandoned camp were able to escape unscathed. I have no idea what that cult was or who those people were. I have no clue if they were a legitimate cult or just some people trying to prank campers. I'm fortunate that I've not had any other run-ins like this, but I now know there are some strange people in that desert.